I'm Brooke, 32, and my father just dropped a bomb at our Christmas dinner. We voted, he announced smugly, since you don't have kids, you'll pay for ours. The table fell silent as my childless status became the family punchline. Again. Years of funding their lives flashed before my eyes, private school tuitions, mortgage help, vacations, all while they dismissed my choices. I reached for my phone under the table, something inside me finally snapping. They had no idea what was coming. Before I continue this story, where are you watching from? Hit like and subscribe if you've ever had family judge your life choices. Trust me, you'll want to see how their Christmas completely fell apart. Growing up in Brookline, an upper-middle-class Boston suburb, I was always the responsible one. My parents, Margaret and Richard, raised us with high expectations. My father worked as an investment advisor while my mother taught high school English. From an early age, I showed an aptitude for technology that neither my older brother Thomas nor my younger sister Madison shared. My childhood bedroom walls weren't covered with boy band posters, but with academic achievement certificates. While Thomas played football and Madison excelled in drama club, I spent hours coding and building computers. My parents seemed proud, but there was always an undercurrent of when will she grow out of this phase. I never did. After graduating with honors from MIT with a computer science degree, I landed an entry-level position at TechFusion, one of Boston's fastest-growing software companies. Within 5 years, I'd climbed to senior developer, and by 30, I was leading my own team with a salary that comfortably crossed into 6 figures. Last month, I received another promotion to development director, bumping my annual compensation to $215,000 plus stock options. My downtown Boston apartment offers stunning harbor views, and I've just started looking at investment properties. By conventional standards, I'm successful, thriving even. Thomas took a different path. He married his college girlfriend Amber right after graduation and immediately started a family. They now have 3 children, Emma, 10, Jason, 8, and Lily, 5. He works in sales for a pharmaceutical company, decent money, but stretched thin across a mortgage, private school tuitions, and the endless expenses of raising 3 kids. Madison followed a similar trajectory, marrying her high school sweetheart Kyle. They have 2 children, Sophia, 7, and Ethan, 4. Madison works part-time as a real estate agent while Kyle manages a local bank branch. Their finances are perpetually tight despite a comfortable combined income. My parents retired 3 years ago. Dad's investments provided a solid foundation, but their lifestyle aspirations often exceed their means. They frequently comment on friends taking exotic cruises or purchasing vacation homes, luxuries just beyond their reach. Throughout my adult life, I've heard subtle and not-so-subtle comments about my childless status. Initially, it was "you're still young" and "when you meet the right person." As I entered my 30s, the tone shifted to concerned. "Your biological clock is ticking, and you might regret this decision later." I've dated seriously twice, once in my mid-20s with David, who eventually wanted children, and more recently with James, who was open to a child-free life, but ultimately we weren't compatible for other reasons. I'm not opposed to marriage, but I'm comfortable with my decision not to have children. My life feels full with fulfilling work, close friends, travel, and personal projects. What my family fails to acknowledge is how generously I've supported them financially. When Thomas's oldest needed specialized testing not covered by insurance, I wrote a $7,000 check without hesitation. When Madison's roof leaked catastrophically during a harsh winter, my $12,000 covered repairs their insurance wouldn't. And when my parents' retirement portfolio took a hit during the market downturn, I supplemented their income with monthly transfers that have now totaled over $45,000. For the past 3 years, I've paid $15,000 annually toward Thomas's children's private school tuition. Last spring, I contributed $10,000 toward Madison's new family minivan when their old one died unexpectedly. When my parents decided their kitchen needed renovation, my $25,000 loan made it possible, a loan we all knew would never be repaid. Last summer, I surprised everyone with a fully funded family vacation to Disney World, accommodations at the Grand Floridian, park hopper passes, meal plans, and airfare for all 13 of us. The $30,000 expense barely dented my savings, and seeing my nieces and nephews experience the magic seemed worth every penny. For this Christmas, I'd spent weeks selecting thoughtful, premium gifts for everyone. For my parents, I'd ordered a luxury Alaskan cruise for their anniversary next year, $18,000. For Thomas and Amber, I'd purchased the high-end home theater system they'd been eyeing, $7,500. Madison and Kyle were getting the kitchen renovation they couldn't afford, $12,000 in contractor deposits already paid. Each child was receiving both educational gifts and the big items on their wish lists: the latest gaming system for Jason, an electric piano for Emma, a professional-grade art set for Lily, a junior scientist laboratory for Sophia, and a deluxe outdoor playhouse for Ethan. Despite this generosity, family gatherings invariably included comments about my DINK status, dual income, no kids. Though I'm single, they assume my lack of children equals excessive disposable income. My promotions were acknowledged with "must be nice not having to worry about childcare" rather than congratulations. My international vacations were met with "must be great having all that freedom" in tones suggesting selfishness rather than legitimate life choices. Still, I arrived at my parents' suburban home this Christmas Eve with genuine hope that this year would be different. Perhaps my consistent support had finally earned their respect for my choices. The beautifully wrapped packages in my car trunk represented not just gifts, but a desire for acceptance I couldn't seem to extinguish. As I rang the doorbell, juggling bakery boxes and wine bottles, I had no idea that within hours, years of simmering resentment would finally boil over, changing our family dynamic forever. The annual Christmas Eve dinner at my parents' house started pleasantly enough. Mom had outdone herself with decorations. The 12-foot tree in the living room sparkled with ornaments collected over decades, including the lopsided clay star I'd made in second grade. The dining room gleamed with her best china and crystal glasses, red tapered candles casting a warm glow over the mahogany table. Thomas and Amber arrived with their children in coordinating holiday outfits, Emma and Lily in velvet dresses with matching headbands, Jason uncomfortably tugging at his sweater vest. Madison's family followed shortly after, her husband Kyle carrying sleeping Ethan while Sophia twirled in her new Christmas dress. My parents' neighbors, the Andersons, and my mother's sister Aunt Patricia with her husband Uncle George rounded out our gathering of 16. "Brooke," finally my mother said, accepting my offering of wine and pastries. Everyone else managed to arrive on time, even with children to wrangle. I bit back a retort about my tower drive through holiday traffic after working until noon. Instead, I smiled and moved through the room, distributing hugs and compliments. Dinner began smoothly with Dad carving the roast beef while Mom served her famous Yorkshire puddings. Conversation flowed easily through the first course: work updates, neighborhood news, and the children's school achievements. I shared briefly about my recent promotion, which received polite nods before Thomas quickly redirected to Emma's leading role in the school holiday pageant. The atmosphere shifted when Uncle George, halfway through his second scotch, brought up the recent election. "Can you believe they're talking about more tax breaks for families with children?" he asked, fork paused midway to his mouth. "As if the current child tax credits aren't generous enough." Dad immediately straightened in his chair. "Well, raising children is expensive, George. The government should recognize that contribution to society." I should have recognized the warning signs. Dad's slightly flushed face, Mom's quick glance in my direction, but I continued eating, hoping the conversation would move to safer territory. Still, Aunt Patricia interjected, some of these proposals seem excessive. Not everyone can or wants to have children. That's the problem with society today, Dad declared, setting down his knife with unnecessary force. Too many young people choosing fancy apartments and exotic vacations over family responsibility. The table fell uncomfortably silent. Every adult present knew exactly who he was referring to. Richard, Mom murmured warningly, but he continued. No, Margaret, it needs to be said. In fact, we just voted for Councilman Phillips specifically because he supports the new local tax structure. He looked directly at me, a challenging glint in his eye. Since you don't have kids, you'll pay for ours. It's only fair, right, Brooke? The dining room seemed to contract around me. I set my fork down carefully, conscious of the children at the table watching with curious eyes. What exactly does that mean, Dad? I kept my voice level. He laughed, the sound holding no warmth. Phillips is pushing a new property tax assessment that increases rates for households without dependent children. It'll fund better schools and family services. You make plenty of money sitting behind a computer all day. You can afford to contribute more to actual families. Thomas snorted in agreement. You have no idea how expensive raising kids is these days, Brooke. Private school tuition alone is killing us. The irony of this statement, given that I paid half of that tuition, made my chest tighten. Maybe if you weren't so focused on your career, you'd understand what really matters, Madison added, reaching out to smooth Sophia's hair. Some things are more important than promotions and fancy vacations. That's not fair, I said quietly. My life choices are just as valid as yours. Oh, come on, Dad scoffed. We're just stating facts. You have more disposable income because you chose not to have a family. Society balances things out through tax policy. I didn't realize you considered me without a family, I replied, feeling a familiar hurt crystallize into something harder. And I already contribute significantly to this family, financially and otherwise. Nobody's saying we don't appreciate the occasional gifts, Thomas said dismissively. But it's not the same as the daily sacrifice of parenting. Occasional gifts. The phrase echoed in my head as I mentally calculated the thousands of dollars transferred from my accounts to his over the past year alone. Around the table, expressions ranged from uncomfortable to openly agreeing with my father. The Andersons studied their plates intensely. Aunt Patricia frowned slightly but remained silent. Uncle George nodded along with my father's points. My mother's eyes darted anxiously between family members, but she offered no defense. I pay the highest tax rate in this family, I said carefully. I donate substantially to education foundations and children's charities. And I've contributed over $70,000 to direct family support in the past year alone. Oh, here we go, Thomas rolled his eyes. Nobody asked you to keep score, Brooke. And nobody asked you to judge my life choices, I countered, feeling my carefully maintained composure beginning to crack. Let's change the subject, Mom suggested brightly. Who wants to hear about the Christmas pageant? Emma was a wonderful angel. But Dad wasn't finished. All we're saying is that people who don't contribute to the next generation should contribute financially instead. It's simple economics. I felt something shift inside me, a fundamental load-bearing beam of family loyalty suddenly developing a hairline fracture. Under the table, I reached for my phone, initially just needing something to ground me, to prevent me from saying things I couldn't take back. You know what, I said, sliding my chair back slightly, I need to use the restroom. Excuse me for a moment. As I stood, I noticed Madison whispering to Kyle, both of them smirking slightly. Thomas was already helping himself to more roast beef. The conversation about my inadequate life contributions apparently concluded to his satisfaction. My parents' guest bathroom provided momentary sanctuary. I leaned against the marble vanity, studying my reflection in the mirror. My carefully applied holiday makeup couldn't hide the hurt in my eyes or the tight set of my jaw. For years, I'd accepted these jabs and dismissals, believing that family relationships required endless tolerance and forgiveness. But as I unlocked my phone screen, a notification from my banking app caught my attention. The automatic transfer to my parents' account, $2,000 for this month, had just completed. I stared at the confirmation message, something cold and clarifying washing over me. Maybe it was time the family learned exactly what my childless, selfish existence really meant to their comfortable lives. With trembling fingers, I opened my finance app fully. Toggling to the family support category I'd created years ago to track these expenses for tax purposes. The numbers stared back at me. Black and white evidence of years of unacknowledged generosity. Last January, $15,000 transfer to Thomas's account with the memo, children's school tuition. March, $10,000 to Madison's credit union account labeled minivan down payment. April through November, 8 monthly transfers of $2,000 each to my parents' joint account totaling $16,000 for kitchen renovation. June, $30,000 in charges from Disney World Resorts, Orlando Airlines, and travel insurance for 13 people. September, $9,000 to specialized children's tutoring services for Jason's dyslexia support. October, $4,500 to emergency dental surgery for Kyle when their insurance denied coverage. December, $55,000 in pending Christmas gift charges, including deposits to contractors, travel agents, and high-end electronics retailers. The total for this year alone, $139,500. I scrolled back further. Last year, $126,700. Year before, $98,200. The numbers blurred as tears threatened. For 5 years, I'd been silently subsidizing my family's lifestyle while they simultaneously belittled my choices. Private schools they couldn't afford. Home renovations beyond their budgets. Family vacations that would otherwise remain dreams. Medical treatments insurance wouldn't cover. Emergency funds when their finances fell short. All while enduring comments about my selfish lifestyle and how I should contribute more to society. Memories flashed through my mind. Thomas at Emma's 8th birthday, loudly wondering how I could possibly understand the joy of parenthood while I assembled the premium swing set I'd purchased, but wouldn't receive credit for. Madison suggesting my promotion came easier because I didn't have real responsibilities at home as she drove away in the car I'd helped finance. Dad commenting that my downtown apartment represented wasted space that could house a family, never acknowledging that my excessive income helped keep him and Mom comfortable in retirement. Mom gently suggesting I freeze my eggs just in case, in the same conversation where she thanked me for covering their property taxes when their investments underperformed. I'd been their safety net, ATM, and emotional punching bag, a triple role I'd accepted out of love and a desire for approval that never seemed to materialize. As I stared at the numbers, a plan began forming. What if they understood exactly what my support meant to their daily lives? What if, just once, actions had consequences? I scrolled through my pending transactions. All the Christmas gifts, the cruise, home theater system, kitchen renovation, children's presents, were still processing. The big-ticket items wouldn't charge until shipping, while contractor deposits could still be canceled. With sudden clarity, I realized I'd been enabling not just their financial dependence, but their disrespect. By quietly subsidizing their lives without acknowledgement, I'd become complicit in my own mistreatment. I took 3 deep breaths, splashed cold water on my face, and reapplied my lipstick. Then I returned to the dining table with artificial calm, sliding back into my seat as dessert was being served. "Everything okay?" Mom asked, passing me a slice of pecan pie. "You were gone a while." "Perfect," I replied with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. I just needed to check something. Throughout dessert, I participated in conversation with newfound curiosity, asking each family member specific questions about their holiday plans and upcoming year. Thomas, are the kids excited about winter ski camp next month? I asked innocently, knowing I'd paid the $3,500 deposit. Oh, yes, he replied enthusiastically. Jason's especially looking forward to snowboarding lessons. Madison, when does the contractor start on your kitchen? January. She nodded eagerly. The 15th. We can't wait to finally have that island and new appliances. And Mom, Dad, you're all set for that Alaska cruise for your anniversary in June, right? We're so looking forward to it. Mom beamed. We never thought we'd see Alaska. It's been on our bucket list forever. One by one, they shared expectations and excitement about experiences and opportunities that wouldn't exist without my financial support. Not once did anyone acknowledge this reality. Instead, they continued making offhand comments about my simple life with only myself to worry about. By the time coffee was served, my plan was solidified. This would be the last Christmas where my generosity was taken for granted and my life choices denigrated. Tomorrow, they would begin to understand exactly what my child-free existence meant to their comfortable lives. As we moved to the living room for the traditional Christmas Eve exchange of one small gift each, the main presents would be opened tomorrow. I maintained my pleasant facade. I excused myself early, claiming a migraine, and promised to return in the morning for the full celebration. Don't be late, Dad called as I gathered my coat. The kids want to open presents by 8. I wouldn't miss it for the world, I replied, the double meaning lost on everyone but me. Driving back to my hotel, I'd stopped staying overnight at my parents' years ago. A strange sense of calm settled over me. For the first time in my adult life, I was about to prioritize my self-respect over family approval. Whatever fallout came, I knew with absolute certainty that I was done being the family ATM without basic respect in return. I set my alarm for 5 a.m. There was much to accomplish before the family's Christmas morning began. My alarm chirped at 5 a.m. sharp. Outside my hotel window, darkness still blanketed Boston. Christmas lights twinkling in the distance. For a moment, I considered abandoning my plan. It was Christmas, after all. Then I remembered my father's smug expression, Thomas's dismissive eye roll, Madison's condescending whispers. I sat up, opened my laptop, and began. First, I logged into my credit card accounts. The pending charges for all major Christmas gifts required simple cancellations. The cruise line, electronics retailer, and children's boutique all had 24/7 customer service, even on Christmas. One by one, I canceled each order, requesting immediate void of authorization holds. Are you sure you want to cancel this Alaska cruise package? It's non-refundable after January 1st, asked the customer service representative. Completely sure, I replied. Family plans have changed. Next came the contractor deposits. The kitchen renovation company had an emergency contact number. I left a voicemail and followed up with an email formally withdrawing my financial sponsorship of the project. Any work must be arranged directly with the homeowners, Madison and Kyle Mitchell. I opened my recurring payments dashboard and methodically canceled every family-related automatic transfer. Monthly contribution to parents' household account. Cancelled. Quarterly payment to Thomas's children's private school. Cancelled. Bi-monthly deposit to family vacation fund. Cancelled. Annual renewal of premium family Disney Plus and Netflix packages. Cancelled. The school tuition required a formal email to the bursar's office. Dear Westlake Academy Administration, please be advised that effective immediately, I am withdrawing my financial sponsorship of Emma, Jason, and Lily Anderson's tuition assistance. Their parents, Thomas and Amber Anderson, should be notified that alternative payment arrangements will be necessary for the upcoming term. Regards, Brooke Anderson. I drafted a similar email to Madison's Children's Private Gymnastics Academy and Ethan's specialized preschool program. For my parents, I composed a formal letter to their bank. To whom it may concern. This letter serves as official notification that I am halting all automatic payments from my accounts, details below, to the joint account of Richard and Margaret Anderson. The previously agreed renovation loan repayment schedule is hereby terminated. Sincerely, Brooke Anderson. By 6:30 a.m. I had systematically dismantled the entire financial support structure I'd built for my family over years. Each cancellation notification forwarded to my email felt simultaneously painful and liberating. Next, I created a comprehensive spreadsheet documenting every dollar I'd contributed to family support over the past 5 years. I organized it by category and recipient, with dates, amounts, and purposes clearly listed. Thomas's family, $211,450. Children's education, $135,000. Emergency support, $27,450. Vacations, $49,000. Madison's family, $178,300. Home improvement, $62,000. Vehicle expenses, $37,500. Children's activities, $41,800. Emergency support, $37,000. Parents, $264,500. Home renovation, $85,000. Travel, $52,000. Monthly supplements, $96,000. Medical expenses not covered by Medicare, $31,500. Total 5-year family support, $654,250. The number stunned even me. Over $500,000 post-tax dollars transferred from my accounts to my family's over 5 years. The equivalent of an entire luxury home in many markets. Or college educations for all 5 nieces and nephews. All while being treated as if my contributions to family and society were somehow lacking. With the spreadsheet complete, I had one final task. I opened the travel app on my phone and booked a Christmas miracle of my own, a last-minute luxury vacation to Bora Bora, departing that very evening. The overwater bungalow, private plunge pool, and beachfront dining packages would normally be impossible to secure on Christmas Day, but a cancellation had created an opening. The $27,000 price tag, roughly equivalent to what I planned to spend on Thomas's family Christmas gifts, didn't make me flinch. I packed quickly, checked out of my hotel, and drove to a coffee shop near my parents' neighborhood. From there, I sent a single group text to my entire family. Something urgent has come up. Won't make it for Christmas morning. Gifts are experiencing unexpected delays. We'll explain later. Enjoy your holiday. Then I silenced notifications, finished my coffee, and headed to Logan International Airport. By the time my family gathered around their Christmas tree, expecting piles of presents from Aunt Brooke, I would be somewhere over the Atlantic, first-class champagne in hand. Finally putting myself first. The financial awakening I'd set in motion wouldn't hit them all at once. It would unfold gradually. A returned payment notification here, a cancellation email there. An overdrawn account warning when automatic deposits didn't arrive. By the time I landed in paradise, their comfortable Christmas would already be unraveling. As I handed my boarding pass to the gate agent, I felt a momentary pang of guilt about the children. They weren't responsible for their parents' attitudes. I made a mental note to establish education trusts for each niece and nephew directly funds their parents couldn't access, but would secure the children's futures regardless of our adult relationships. Merry Christmas, Ms. Anderson, the flight attendant greeted as I settled into my first-class seat. Are you traveling to see family? I smiled, reclining my seat. No, Actually, this year, I'm celebrating myself. Somewhere over the Atlantic, as I sipped champagne and watched It's a Wonderful Life on my personal screen, my phone began vibrating incessantly in airplane mode. The notifications piled up, invisible to me but accumulating like snowflakes in a blizzard. It wasn't until our refueling stop in Los Angeles that I briefly reconnected to digital reality. The barrage was immediate. 27 missed calls, 43 text messages, and 16 voicemails. The family group chat had exploded with confusion, accusations, and eventually panic. I scrolled through quickly, watching the progression unfold like a predictable 5-act play. Act 1, Confusion, 8:15 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. Thomas. Brooke, where are you? The kids are waiting to open presents. Mom. Honey, is everything okay? This isn't like you. Madison. Seriously? You couldn't have told us yesterday instead of ruining Christmas morning. Dad, what kind of emergency happens on Christmas? The children are disappointed. Act 2. Discovery, 9:45 a.m. to 11 a.m. Thomas, the school just emailed saying Brooke's tuition payment was canceled? What the hell? Madison. Netflix isn't working. Says account terminated. Mom, Richard just got a notice from the bank about our renovation payment being rejected. Thomas. None of the big gifts for the kids have arrived. Tracking says orders were canceled. Madison. Contractor called. Says Brooke pulled funding for our kitchen. Is this some kind of joke? Act 3. Anger. 11:15 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. Dad, Brooke, this is completely unacceptable behavior. Call immediately. Thomas, you're punishing my children for something I said? Real mature. Madison, I can't believe you'd ruin Christmas for everyone over a stupid dinner conversation. Thomas, Emma is crying because the piano isn't coming. How do I explain this? Mom. Please call us, honey. Whatever upset you, we can talk about it. Act 4. Realization. 1:45 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. Thomas, this is about what Dad said about childless people paying more taxes. Isn't it? It was just political talk, for God's sake. Madison, we never meant to hurt your feelings. You're overreacting to a joke. Dad, I was just stating my political opinions. This is an extreme response. Mom, please don't throw away family relationships over a momentary disagreement. Act 5. Desperation. 3:45 p.m. Present. Thomas. Brooke. The school needs confirmation about next semester's tuition by January 3rd. We can't cover it without remortgaging. Madison. The contractor won't reschedule without a new deposit. We've already packed up the kitchen. Mom, please call us, sweetheart. Dad didn't mean what he said. We're worried about you. Dad, Brooke, whatever point you're trying to make. You've made it. Let's discuss this reasonably. The last message had arrived just minutes before I checked my phone, a family group text from my father. Brooke, we need to talk. No one realized how much we've been depending on your generosity. Please contact us when you can. I smiled slightly at the carefully diplomatic phrasing. Not an apology, not yet, but the first acknowledgement that my contributions had value. Progress, however small. I composed a single response before boarding my connecting flight. I'm safe and taking some much-needed time for myself. Attached is a spreadsheet documenting my financial contributions to this family over the past 5 years. Perhaps review it before our next conversation about who contributes what to society. I attached the detailed financial document, then added, Merry Christmas. I've finally given myself the gift of self-respect. Then I boarded my flight to Tahiti, the connection to Bora Bora, feeling lighter than I had in years. The next wave of messages arrived when I landed in French Polynesia. The tone had shifted dramatically. Thomas had sent a private text. I had no idea it totaled this much. We've been taking you for granted. Madison's message struck a similar note. Just saw the spreadsheet. I don't know what to say except I'm sorry. We've been thoughtless. My mother had left a tearful voicemail. Brooke, honey, seeing everything listed like that, we never realized. It didn't register how much we've come to depend on you. I'm so ashamed we've made you feel unappreciated. My father's response was the most surprising, a formal email with the subject line, formal apology. Brooke, your spreadsheet was illuminating and humbling. I spoke carelessly and disrespectfully about your life choices while benefiting substantially from your success. The irony and hypocrisy of this is not lost on me. When you're ready to talk, I owe you a proper apology. Dad. As the water taxi transported me to the overwater bungalow that would be my home for the next 10 days, I reflected on these initial responses. They were starting points, not solutions. The fundamental issues, respect for my choices, acknowledgement of my contributions, and basic appreciation, would require more than crisis-motivated apologies. My phone buzzed with a new message from Thomas. The kids made you cards. They miss their aunt. Whatever issues we adults need to resolve, please don't disappear from their lives. That one hit harder. I sent back, I love them too. This isn't about them. Education trusts for each child will be established when I return, regardless of our adult relationships. By evening, reports from the family Christmas were filtering through the group chat. My mother had managed to cobble together a modified celebration with hastily purchased small gifts. The planned prime rib dinner had been downscaled to ham. My father was unusually quiet. Thomas and Madison had taken their families home early, citing headaches but actually needing to address their suddenly precarious financial situations. Madison had privately messaged, "We can't afford the mortgage payment and the kids' activities without your help. I never realized how much we've been relying on you." Thomas was more direct. "The tuition bill is due in full by January 15th. We literally don't have it. I've taken for granted that you'd always cover it." Each message confirmed what I'd long suspected but never confronted. My financial support had become an expected entitlement rather than appreciated assistance. The family had built lifestyles that required my continued subsidies while simultaneously dismissing my life choices. As I sipped a fresh coconut drink on my private deck, watching the sunset turn the lagoon shades of orange and pink, a final message arrived from my father. "The family met today to discuss our treatment of you. It was a difficult but necessary conversation. We understand now. Please talk to us when you're ready." I set my phone aside and watched darkness settle over paradise. For the first time in years, I felt not just heard but seen. The path forward wasn't yet clear, but the pattern had been broken. Whatever relationship we rebuilt would stand on honesty rather than unspoken expectations and quiet resentment. Tomorrow, I would swim with manta rays and hike to a waterfall. My family would face mortgage payments, tuition bills, and renovation contracts without my financial safety net. We all had growth to experience before we could meet again as equals. My Bora Bora bungalow became a sanctuary of peace and self-discovery. Mornings began with sunrise yoga on my private deck. Afternoons involved snorkeling through crystal waters among rainbow-colored fish, and evenings meant fresh seafood under star-filled skies. The resort staff knew me only as Ms. Anderson, the solo traveler, not as someone's daughter, sister, or aunt. Just Brooke, complete and sufficient on my own. For the first 2 days, I maintained digital silence, allowing myself to decompress without family drama. On the 3rd day, curiosity got the better of me. I connected to the resort's Wi-Fi and opened my family communication channels. The messages painted a clear picture of Christmas collapse. Thomas had sent videos of his children's confusion Christmas morning. "Where are the big presents from Aunt Brooke?" Emma asked repeatedly, her disappointment evident as she searched behind the tree. Jason's excitement about his gaming system faded to bewilderment when only small gifts appeared. Madison had documented her kitchen in disarray, cabinets removed, appliances disconnected, renovation supplies stacked in boxes. "Contractor says we need $8. 000 immediately or he's taking another job, her message explained. We've maxed out our credit cards already. My parents' messages were more restrained but equally revealing. Mom sent a photo of Dad sitting alone on the porch, staring at nothing. He hasn't been sleeping, she wrote. Keeps saying he ruined everything with his big mouth. The family group chat showed their collective realization unfolding. Thomas just calculated what private school would actually cost without Brooke's help. We literally can't afford it. Madison, our monthly budget has had a $2,000 gift from Brooke line item for years. Without it, we're underwater. Dad, I've taken inventory of everything Brooke has subsidized for us. The list is humbling. Mom, I found receipts from the Disney trip last summer. The total was more than our first house cost. Their messages to me grew increasingly introspective. Thomas, I've spent years making comments about your easy, child-free life while simultaneously depending on your financial support. The hypocrisy is staggering. Madison, Kyle and I had a long talk about our finances. We've been living beyond our means because you've always filled the gap. It wasn't fair to you. Dad, I advocated for higher taxes on childless people while accepting thousands in support from my childless daughter. I can't justify that contradiction. Mom, we held a family meeting yesterday. No excuses, just honest conversation about how we've treated you. It was painful but necessary. The most significant message came from my father on December 28th. Brooke, we understand now. Your spreadsheet forced us to confront uncomfortable truths. I've belittled your life choices while benefiting from them. The cruise, the monthly supplements, the renovation, all gifts we accepted without proper gratitude while continuing to suggest your life was somehow lacking. It was wrong, and I'm deeply sorry. When you're ready, we'd like to rebuild our relationship on mutual respect rather than financial dependence. I sat on my deck, tropical breeze washing over me, letting these acknowledgments sink in. For years, I'd wanted simply to be valued for who I was, not what I could provide. Now, through this drastic measure, that recognition was finally emerging. Later that evening, I received video calls from each niece and nephew. Emma showed me the handmade bracelet she'd created for when Aunt Brooke comes home. Jason explained his science project about marine ecosystems. Because you love the ocean. Lily sang her version of Jingle Bells with enthusiastic, if off-key commitment. Sophia demonstrated her new gymnastics tumble. And little Ethan simply pressed his face close to the camera to announce, "Miss you big, Auntie B." These moments pierced my protective bubble. The children hadn't caused this situation, yet they were experiencing consequences. I sent each child a personal email to accounts managed by their parents, explaining that Aunt Brooke needed a special vacation but loved them very much and would see them soon. To Thomas and Madison, I sent brief but clear messages. The education trusts will be established when I return. Each child will have college funds secured regardless of our adult relationships. As New Year's Eve approached, the family's financial reality continued to clarify. Thomas had met with school administrators about payment plans or potential scholarships. Never realized how privileged we've been, he admitted. Other parents juggle multiple jobs for this tuition we've taken for granted. Madison and Kyle had applied for a home equity loan to cover essential renovations. Scaling back plans significantly, she reported. Realizing we don't need high-end everything. My parents had canceled their country club membership and listed their vacation timeshare for sale. Adjusting to actual retirement income, Dad explained. Should have done this years ago instead of depending on you. On New Year's Eve, while I enjoyed a beachfront celebration with newfound travel friends, my family held what they called an accountability gathering at my parents' house. Mom sent photos of all of them sitting in the living room with written lists titled, "How I've Taken Brooke for Granted and Changes I'm Committing to Make." Dad's final message of the year arrived just before midnight in Bora Bora. "We understand now, Brooke. Your absence forced us to see what was always true. We've been entitled, ungrateful, and disrespectful while simultaneously depending on your generosity. Whatever relationship we rebuild will be fundamentally different, based on mutual respect rather than financial dependence. When you're ready to talk, we're ready to listen. Happy New Year. We love you. I welcomed the new year floating in my private plunge pool, stars reflecting in the still water around me. The difficult conversations still lay ahead, but something fundamental had shifted. For the first time, my family saw me clearly not as the ATM aunt or the childless daughter with extra money and time, but as a person worthy of basic respect regardless of my reproductive choices. The path to healing would be complex, but the foundation was finally honest. I raised my champagne glass to the tropical night sky and toasted to boundaries, self-respect, and family relationships built on appreciation rather than expectation. Tomorrow I would begin planning my return. But tonight, I celebrated the reclamation of my worth beyond what I could provide to others. It was, perhaps, the most valuable gift I had ever received. I returned to Boston on January 5th, tan, rested, and resolute. The emotional clarity gained in Bora Bora had crystallized into determination. I would rebuild relationships with my family, but on fundamentally different terms. Before contacting anyone, I met with my financial advisor and attorney. Together, we established 5 separate education trusts for my nieces and nephews, each conservatively structured to cover future college expenses. These funds would be irrevocable and managed by an independent trustee, ensuring the children's educational futures regardless of my relationships with their parents. Next, I drafted clear guidelines for any future financial assistance to family members. No recurring or automatic payments. All support documented with explicit terms. Acknowledgement of gifts as optional generosity, not obligation. Zero tolerance for disparaging comments about my life choices. Only then did I text my parents. I'm back in Boston. Available to meet Sunday at 2:00 p.m. if everyone can gather at your house. The responses were immediate and uniform. Everyone would be there. When Sunday arrived, I approached my parents' familiar doorstep with mixed emotions. The door opened before I could knock. My mother, looking smaller somehow, her eyes red-rimmed but hopeful. "Brooke," she whispered, pulling me into a tentative hug. "Thank you for coming." The living room had been arranged with chairs in a circle. My parents, Thomas and Amber, Madison and Kyle, and a single chair obviously meant for me. The children were conspicuously absent, giving this gathering the appropriate gravity. An uncomfortable silence fell as I took my seat, broken only when my father cleared his throat. "Brooke," he began, voice uncharacteristically hesitant. "First, I want to say I'm sorry. Not just for what I said at Christmas dinner, but for years of disrespecting your choices while benefiting from them. It was hypocritical and wrong." I nodded, waiting for him to continue. "Your absence and that spreadsheet forced us to confront uncomfortable truths. We've built lifestyles dependent on your generosity while simultaneously suggesting your life was somehow lacking." He gestured around the room. "All of us." Thomas leaned forward, hands clasped. "I've made countless comments about your easy, child-free life while accepting tuition payments that made my children's education possible. The cognitive dissonance is staggering once you see it. We calculated what our actual budget should have been without your subsidies," Madison added. "It was a harsh reality check. We've been living far beyond our means because you've always filled the gap." My mother wiped tears. "I should have defended you all these years. Instead, I accepted your financial help while allowing others to diminish your choices. I failed you as a mother." I took a deep breath. "I don't want apologies that come only because the money stopped. That's not healing, it's crisis management." "You're right," Dad acknowledged. "Which is why we met several times while you were away. Without you or your money in the equation, We had to face who we've been and how we've treated you. He handed me a folder containing printed emails, calendar screenshots, and handwritten notes. We've been meeting with a family therapist, Mom explained. Initially just to process the financial shock, but it quickly became about much deeper issues. The folder contained confirmation of weekly family therapy sessions scheduled through June, financial planning workshops they'd enrolled in, and budgets each household had created based on their actual incomes without my subsidies. We don't expect you to resume financial support, Thomas said carefully. But we do hope you'll give us the chance to rebuild relationships based on mutual respect. The children miss you terribly, Amber added, her first contribution to the conversation. But we understand this isn't about them. I nodded, my prepared speech suddenly feeling unnecessary in the face of their evident reflection. I've established education trusts for each child, I said. Their college funds are secure regardless of our adult relationships. Relief flickered across parental faces, quickly replaced by determination not to appear financially motivated. Thank you, Madison said. But what we really want is for you to remain in their lives and ours because we value you, not what you can provide. That's what I want too, I admitted. But it requires fundamental changes in how we interact. I outlined my boundaries clearly. No more comments suggesting my life was incomplete without children. No expectations of financial support. Genuine interest in my accomplishments and challenges. Recognition that my time has value, even without children. Zero tolerance for childless jokes or tax policy comments. These aren't negotiable, I concluded. I won't continue relationships that diminish my worth or treat my success as a family ATM. Dad nodded slowly. You deserve that basic respect. I'm ashamed it took such drastic measures for us to see it. We've drafted our own commitments, Mom said, passing me another document. Specific changes each of us is making, with accountability measures. The list included monthly family check-ins with a respect mediator, their therapist. Financial independence plans for each household. New communication guidelines prohibiting judgmental comments. Recognition of different but equally valid life paths. We can't change overnight, Thomas admitted. But we're committed to the process. I felt the tight knot in my chest loosen slightly. That's all I can ask for. The conversation continued for hours, painful but necessary. We cried, argued points, clarified misunderstandings, and eventually ordered pizza when everyone realized we'd talked through dinner. We agreed to start with a family dinner the following weekend. No financial discussions allowed, just reconnection. The children would be included, the focus on rebuilding relationships rather than transactions. Over the next 3 months, we adhered to this new framework. Family therapy continued. Thomas and Amber downsized to a more affordable home, eliminating their need for tuition assistance. Madison returned to full-time work, her family adjusting to a more modest lifestyle. My parents sold their vacation property, rightfully becoming financially independent in retirement. By April, our Sunday dinners had evolved into genuine connection. My job updates received the same interest as the children's activities. Family conversations expanded beyond parenting to include politics, books, travel, and personal growth, with respectful space for differing viewpoints. Most significantly, I resumed selected financial support, but as conscious choice rather than expectation. When Emma needed specialized music camp tuition, I contributed because I valued her talent, not because Thomas assumed I would. When my parents celebrated their anniversary, I treated them to a weekend getaway, a gift genuinely appreciated rather than expected. The education trusts remained my most significant contribution, ensuring each child's future opportunities while removing this responsibility from their parents' financial calculations. The knowledge that their children's education was secure allowed Thomas and Madison to focus on current stability rather than impossible future saving. By summer, our family dynamic had transformed. The children still received generous birthday and Christmas gifts from their aunt, but their parents no longer built lifestyle expectations around my contributions. My life choices were referenced with respect rather than judgment. My time was valued whether spent on career advancement, personal travel, or family activities. The most profound change came from my father. During a private lunch in June, he handed me an envelope containing a check repayment for the kitchen renovation loan with interest. "I can't restore the respect I should have given you all along," he said quietly. "But I can ensure our relationship going forward is built on mutual respect rather than financial dependence." I pushed the check back across the table. "Put it in your grandchildren's activity fund." "I don't need repayment. I needed acknowledgement and respect." He nodded, understanding the distinction. "I'm proud of you, Brooke. Not because of what you provide to others, but because of who you are: brilliant, principled, and brave enough to demand the respect you deserve." That acknowledgement, the simple recognition of my worth beyond utility to others, was worth more than any financial repayment. As summer faded to fall, our family found a new equilibrium. The dramatic Christmas collapse had forced a necessary reset, creating space for relationships based on appreciation rather than transaction. I remained child-free by choice, successful in my career, and generous with family, but now my generosity flowed from choice rather than obligation, received with gratitude rather than entitlement. The lesson had been painful but transformative. True family relationships require mutual respect for individual choices, appreciation for contributions of all kinds, and boundaries that protect every member's dignity. Sometimes creating those boundaries demands drastic measures, even reaching for your phone and changing Christmas forever. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family who took you for granted? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need encouragement to stand up for themselves. Remember, true family supports your choices even when they differ from their own. Thank you for listening to my story, and may your holidays be filled with genuine appreciation and respect.